Welcome to the Spy-Fi guys.
So I apologize to the universe for that.
Yes. Wow.
Justice for Dennison!
Is it though?
I laughed and then I hated myself for laughing.
Welcome to the Spy-Fi guys, where we cover spy facts, spy fiction, and everything in between. I'm Christian.
And I'm Zach.
And today we're covering Section 31, the first ever streaming Star Trek movie.
Yes, on Paramount Plus, a movie that has had a long development history. You can tell that on the screen. But Christian, I feel like we're late to the party. It feels like the entire internet has been dumping on this movie the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. But here we are. Better late than never.
Right, but here in the Spy-Fi guys, we don't just dump. We have nuanced, thoughtful opinions, right?
We'll see.
Not making any promises.
No.
So this movie stars Michelle Yeoh, who we know and we have seen before in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Mm-hmm. And this was one of the first things that she did after winning an Academy Award. I guess she also did Wicked too, but this is her big action role after that.
Boy, that's a contrast.
Once. Yeah.
So here on the Spy-Fi guys, as longtime audience members may recall, we are very into nerddums, fandoms. Star Trek is no exception. So Christian, would you be interested in sharing a little bit about your background with Star Trek?
Sure. I mean, I got into Star Trek. Actually, I remember as a kid, like watching episodes of Next Generation with my mom and my dad. Mostly my mom, actually. And I'd go around with a headband all over my eyes and pretend to be Geordi LaForge.
Very nice.
And then I love the original series movies. Those I just have a soft spot for those. And then Next Gen, DS9. I've watched pretty much every episode of every series. I'm like, there may be an odd episode of TNG or like DS9 that I haven't. Actually, maybe Voyager probably is the one that I haven't seen. Might have like missed an episode or two, but for the most part, I've seen everything.
Very cool. All the movies too, I take it?
Yeah, all the movies. Yeah.
Abrams movies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I will go. My background is a little bit more mixed with Star Trek. I grew up on Voyager, actually, because my aunt Colette had VHS tapes of Voyager all around her house. So when we went to visit her, we got to watch them basically in a random order.
Okay.
But I remember watching the 100th episode of Voyager, the one where they crashed into the icy lake.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember that one? The one that's all about Harry Kim. I remember the finale of DS9. And then I got into TNG a bit later. I love the original movies, the ones with Kirk and Spock. Mm-hmm. The Abrams movies are okay. But, Christian, I'm an original New Trek hater. I didn't watch Enterprise. And I do not like Enterprise.
I enjoy Enterprise. When was the last time you actually watched it?
A long time ago, but I've made many attempts to try to watch it again, and I don't know.
Season 4 is actually very good.
Okay. So you have to watch 3 seasons.
I mean,
that's
no,
the old TV show
you only need to watch maybe like the first couple episodes of season 1, and you could almost just skip to season 4.
Yeah, that's right. So then when Paramount Plus came along, I watched a bit of Discovery. I didn't really like it. And I did watch all of Lower Decks, which I did like, and I'll tell you why, Christian. I'll tell you why.
All right.
It's not a prequel. Enterprise is a prequel. Discovery is a prequel. Strange New Worlds is a prequel. The Abrams movies are prequels. I can't handle the prequels.
It's technically a prequel to Nemesis, because it happens before Nemesis. Or does it?
Lower Decks?
Yeah.
That's not correct.
Let me double check.
The uniforms are different. Riker is the captain of the Titan.
Oh, no, you're right. Never mind.
So anyways, but I watched enough of Discovery to know Michelle Yeoh's character and all that. So with that in mind, shall we jump into Section 31?
Sure. So do you have a plot synopsis for us?
Plot synopsis.
I do. So as always, we have our poetry plot synopses. Spoilers begin right here. 1 dead family. A team of 7 misfits. 2 sad murderers. Okay, so I feel like that haiku summarized the movie pretty well, if I do say so myself. But then here is the limerick for Section 31. There once was a girl named Georgiou who chose power instead of her bow. When the past came a-calling, she sent that dude sprawling, and now she just goes with the flow.
All right.
And then here is the real IMDb plot summary. In Star Trek Section 31, Emperor Philippa Georgiou joins a secret division of Starfleet tasked with protecting the United Federation of Planets and must face the sins of her past.
Okay. So, for those who are not Star Trek fans, we have to briefly explain the concept of the mirror universe.
Well, Christian, I was about to say, the problems with the movie begin literally from the first frame, which is pretty impressive. Well, okay, yeah. Briefly speaking, there's a mirror universe where everyone who's good is evil and everyone who's evil is good.
Yeah.
Except they don't really stick to that. But that's the problem begins because Paramount logo is reversed.
Yeah.
And the Star Trek remind you that you're watching a cold corporate franchise, little Star Trek where the ship flies around.
Yeah.
That's also reversed. So I was like, okay, nice. This is a good start. This is something different. How much time did they spend in the mirror universe in this movie? About 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what? Total bait and switch.
Well, it's not a mirror universe movie. It's a Section 31 movie.
But then why have the opening credits be mirrored?
Yeah, I know. That was a problem for me, too. I was like, why are we doing this? I guess just to intro that, okay, we're going to start this in the mirror universe.
I guess so.
Young Philippa, and apparently the way that they choose the emperor of the Terran Empire is by basically having a Hunger Games.
Some people had a problem with this on the internet. I don't really so much. It's a dictatorship society that's not run well. You need the most ruthless person to lead it. That's what they value.
Except from what we've seen before, like in Enterprise, when we go to the mirror universe, the way we see progression in the mirror universe is, all right, if you are the first officer and you kill the captain, you become the captain.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like the Hunger Games, though. Just with more scheming and less direct fighting.
No, but this is like, all right, they're all these teenagers from around the Empire. They're all fighting, and the one who wins becomes the emperor. That just, it's just weird. I don't like
it?
No.
That's fine.
But her final test is there's only two people left: young Philippa Georgiou and her friend named San.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one final test where they're supposed to murder their family.
Okay, so again, issues. I actually kind of liked this part, not that because I like people killing their own families, don't take me out of context, but because this is interesting characters. Okay, she's a monster. How is she going to redeem herself? Spoiler alert, she won't. We're just supposed to overlook this.
If you watched all of Discovery, you will see a redemption arc there. And
sure, but I'm treating the movie as a movie.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a movie. Yeah.
But yeah, so she murders her family and then is given her ceremonial sword that she puts into the embers of a fire and burns her friend on the side of his face.
That's right.
And we get, Hail Empress Georgiou, or Empress Georgiou.
Yeah, I really like the part where the columns transport her in. I thought that was cool. And the General Zod beam in the sky thing, which they never explain what it is. Oh, no, or it's like a ship. I don't know, whatever. I don't care.
So now we get a Mission Impossible style briefing, giving everyone who doesn't know who Philippa Georgiou is a background on her and the Terran Empire.
So, Christian, this reminded me of that old game Star Trek Elite Force. Did you ever play that?
Yeah, I did a little.
So the beginning is like, all right, we got some good stuff here.
So we're introduced to our official Section 31 team, starting with Alok, who I don't actually know his actor's name, but I don't know any of these actors' names actually. Who is going to infiltrate where Georgiou is hiding, which is this space station that's also a nightclub.
That's right. When we first meet Emperor Georgiou, she's eating an eyeball off of a stick. Wow, edgy. So edgy. So cool.
But yeah, so she very quickly realizes that Alok is Section 31, and she very quickly identifies the entire team. And we have a Delta, who we've seen before in Star Trek.
What? I'm gonna do that for my Spy Fact versus Fiction.
That is not. We meet a guy in a mech suit, a Cameloid, who is not a changeling.
Right.
Who we saw for the first time in Star Trek? Was that 6, The Undiscovered Country?
Yeah, that's right.
A weird Irish Vulcan.
Who laughs.
Yeah.
Again, neat idea where they have the laughing Vulcan. Cool. It reminded me of when Data would laugh in The Next Generation, and you know something's up.
And a by-the-book Starfleet officer.
Yeah, thank goodness, a little bit of Star Trek in this movie.
So their mission is to monitor an arms sale from this arms dealer named Data No. We find out that the Vulcan is actually a tiny alien, like in Men in Black.
That's right. And they have authorization to mind wipe the target. Do you remember this part?
I did not. No.
So in a better movie, that might be a little bit more interesting. That seems pretty unethical by Starfleet standards.
So
right?
Let's get to this is my biggest problem with the movie. Section 31 is not a part of Starfleet.
It's not? No. I think I forgot that part.
No.
Okay.
When we're introduced to Section 31 in DS9, no one knows about it. They're a secret division. You don't have Starfleet oversight of Section 31. No. They're in the shadows. They're performing these missions without anyone knowing about it.
Yeah, but things have changed because the fans love Section 31, so it's everywhere now. I was listening to a YouTube video over this week about Picard, actually.
Okay.
And the YouTuber was complaining. She was like, I hate Section 31. It's a terrible idea. It's the worst thing DS9 ever did. It doesn't fit Roddenberry's vision of Star Trek at all. I'm not going to endorse that per se, but I definitely agree that you want to tread lightly when it comes to Section 31, and the producers really don't.
I like the initial concept of them, and I can sort of retcon, all right, they were more well-known and they faded into the shadows after Discovery Season 2.
Yeah, they were great in Deep Space Nine, because Deep Space Nine is the Federation's on its back foot, and they need to start compromising some of their values to survive, and that's really interesting. That's not what's going on in this movie at all.
No. Also, timeline-wise, so we're in what's known as the Lost Era, between Undiscovered Country and the beginning of Next Gen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because it's Discovery stuff.
Well, it's also because, did you recognize who by-the-book Starfleet officer is?
Yes, I did. I was also going to say that for later, but we can say that now. So it's Rachel Garrett, the captain of the Enterprise C from the classic fan-favorite episode Yesterday's Enterprise. Though I think the ages don't match up, but whatever.
Yeah, okay. I mean, she was in that sort of Lost Era.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying I feel like the age of her in this movie doesn't line up with her age in the episode. Why? But I also don't really care that much to try to figure it out.
She's a lieutenant commander. This is what 20. What's the star date here, or what's the date?
I saw that they put in the beginning of the movie, but I don't remember what it was. Something with it had ones.
Let's see. What does Memory Alpha say? Star date 294.2. So this is about 40. Oh, so it's 2324. Which is about 20 years before the Battle of Narendra 3, which is when Rachel Garrett was commander or captain of the USS Enterprise C. So it works out.
Okay, good.
Anyways, they're monitoring the sail, and then Giorgio uses a phase pod, which takes her out of phase of the regular universe, and as well as the case out of phase, so that only she can pick it up. That was a nice touch.
It's great. She makes it look ridiculously easy, and for her, it is easy because she's a super badass from a parallel dimension. I had no problem with that. Yeah. Some people didn't like her going out of phase, but this is Star Trek. As Christian, you may remember, there's an episode where Geordi LaForge, your boy, and Rolaren are out of phase with the rest of the crew. They're like ghosts.
Except it always raises the question of, if they're out of phase of everything, why don't they just phase through the ship and go straight down?
Exactly. Well, the ship is moving at warp speed or whatever. It's a good question. People are wondering, why didn't she phase through the ground? I mean, whatever. It's Star Trek.
Yeah. Someone else has a phase pod and comes through the wall. They have a big fight.
He looks like the screen slaver from Incredibles 2.
Yeah, he does, actually. They have a big fight. They end up destroying a lot of the station. And
people had a problem with this. The internet had a problem with spies having loud, visible fights. It's like Mission Impossible.
All right.
Again, I didn't have an issue with it.
Now, the Deltan is killed before we really learn anything about her. The Mexican opens the case and moves away, and Giorgio recognizes the weapon that was for sale.
By the way, speaking of the phasing, there's a part where she runs on the tables. Again, it's like, why isn't she phased through the tables? Maybe there's stuff on her shoes.
No.
I don't know. But yeah, so he opens the case, as we were saying.
Yeah. And so we get a mirror universe flashback where San, her friend / boyfriend from before, who she had scarred with the sword, presents her with a weapon, which is the one that was in the case. And we see San kill himself with the same poison that Giorgio used to kill her family.
Oh boy. Yep. And he stands up to her, right? You might own my life, but I defy you still.
Yeah. So we find out that Alok is an augment from the eugenics wars.
Yes, that's cool.
Yeah,
I appreciated that. So that explains why he has superhuman strength and stuff. And Giorgio is smug, as usual. So, Christian, this leads me to a problem I call the Etrigan problem. Right?
Okay.
Maybe TV Tropes has come up with it at some other point, but people who know DC Comics might know a character called Etrigan the Demon, okay? If you're not familiar with him, he's a literal demon from hell who switches places with a human, and most times when he appears in the story, he actually is on the side of the good guys. Like, I would say in 95% of his appearances, he helps the good guys, but he's an asshole at the same time.
Sure.
Okay? Because he's a bad guy, and they got to remind you, he's not actually a good guy, even though he only ever does good deeds when we see him. So, I feel like this appears in other fiction as well. Can't think of any examples at the moment. I don't know if you've ever seen that show Luther with Idris Elba.
Actually, no, I haven't.
Okay, so I seem to remember he has this nemesis named Alice Morgan.
Okay.
Who they kind of have that similar relationship as well. Anyway, we have that in this movie too, where Giorgio, despite being a family killer, is still a good guy, but she's a dick at the same time. Just to remind you that, she has some edge to her. Thoughts?
Again, it's the problem of we've seen all of her development in Star Trek Discovery, so yeah, I don't know.
So I didn't watch all of Discovery, so I'm trying to treat the movie like its own thing, which is actually helpful here, in my opinion.
Yeah. But yeah, so we find out that the weapon is called the Godsend, which would incinerate everything in its path, basically destroy a whole quadrant.
Yeah, it's like a halo.
Giorgio deduces that Data No must be from the mirror universe because he knew about that weapon.
So, Christian, I have to interrupt you here because this is where the movie went downhill for me.
Okay.
And I hope it's not in your favorite quotes.
All right.
But they're walking out of this bunker thing.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, I think it's the Vulcan guy, says, "Excuse me, Empress Giorgio, is it God's Send or God's End?" And I was like, my God, this is actually a bad movie.
No, I think was it the mech guy or
Maybe.
It's like between the two of them. They're
I don't care. I was like, goddamn Joss Whedon dialogue. Does not belong in movies where families get killed. No. Joss Whedon has a lot to answer for.
I'd argue that I feel like there's a lot of families who get killed in Joss Whedon movies.
By the way, from another YouTube video where I get all my information, the guy made the argument that it was actually Buffy the Vampire Slayer that started the quippy humor that is now inescapable in Hollywood movies.
Who was the showrunner of Buffy?
Exactly. Well, and then, of course, the Avengers, the same guy. Fortunately, he never did anything else wrong after that. That was a joke.
Okay. It was a little too straight-laced when you said that.
It was a little too dry, even for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, this was where I was like, oh no. Oh no. And the movie never picked up after that. I did not like the Godsend conversation.
Yeah, so we find out that back in the mirror universe that the Terran Empire is collapsing and they need something to boost themselves up, and the Godsend could be it. And as they're having this discussion, the ship explodes around them. We find out that one of the team must be a mole.
And again, this is weird.
Okay.
Because it's Star Trek. Because they're like, okay, we were all here. We're the only ones around. And what, the ship got sabotaged, you said?
Yeah. Or exploded.
Exploded. Okay. Yeah. So they were like, one of us must be a traitor. And I'm like, okay, stop. You're telling me cloaking doesn't exist? Personal cloaking doesn't exist. Changelings don't exist. We just saw people can phase through walls. People who are out of sync with time. I seem to remember there's an episode of Deep Space Nine where Ezri Dax has this rifle that can shoot like through walls.
That's a good episode.
Like, yeah, it's a great one. But like the point is, there's all this technology in Star Trek that makes it possible for someone to get in, sabotage their ship, and get out. It doesn't prove that any of them are traitors.
That's a fair point. I didn't think about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, here on the Spy Guys, we have nuanced, thoughtful conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cloaking, sure. I don't know if we've seen personal cloaking yet at this point. But still, there are so many more other explanations for why it doesn't have to be just one of the, 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, exactly. But then they immediately turn on each other, which, again, feels so different from Star Trek. The Star Trek that I know, where everyone's very professional, and they wouldn't immediately be at each other's throats at, like, slightest...
But most Star Trek we've seen is Starfleet officers, a ship full of them, professionals. These are not them.
And why didn't they do that? Why didn't the producers have that? Like, because a Star Trek movie?
Because Section 31 isn't about a ship. Well, I mean, you could have a 31 ship, which we've seen in Discovery. Yeah.
I haven't seen as much Section 31 stuff as you, but I feel like, if anything, the problem with Section 31 is they're too uptight. They're too secretive, and they're too closed in and too mistrusting. I guess we got that covered. Whereas these people are just so loud and boisterous, and I don't know. I don't get me started. Just say.
So the team splits up. Half go with Giorgio to find this other ship that's wrecked but might be salvageable, and the other half are trying to repair the comms. Now Zeph, the mech, goes missing. Alok and Garrett go look for him, but someone has turned on the antenna array, seemingly Zeph.
I like when they use the tricorder to try to find him. That was cool.
Yeah. And whoever used the antenna array sent a message to whoever they're working for. And so they all come back together and find Zeph's body.
So this was disappointing because Zeph was the only character who actually felt like he wanted to be there. So, Christian, did you ever watch Titans?
Yeah.
The DC show. So for those of you who haven't seen it, it's about the Teen Titans. And everyone in that show is miserable, joyless, other synonyms of miserable, except for one person, Jason Todd. He likes being a superhero. He likes fighting bad guys. He likes actually dressing up like a superhero should. He actually likes being in a superhero show. And then, of course, they kill him. And everyone else acts like he's crazy for wanting that stuff. So that's how I felt about Zeph. Even though he belongs to Warhammer 40K and not Star Trek. But I'll let that one go, too.
But yeah, so they find some of Garrett's hair on Zeph's body, and they scan her and find blood under her fingernails.
Right, so again, this is Star Trek. There's a million ways you could have planted that evidence.
Yeah.
I did like when they have the found footage where it shows the suit attacking himself. That was a cool idea. I appreciated that.
And I also appreciate that you said this isn't Star Trek, so there are ways they could have planned that evidence, and it turns out that they did, so it wasn't such a cut and dry case.
That's right. But my criticism is more that the characters immediately leap to the conclusion that she's a traitor.
Yeah, but that leads to the problem of, all right, if anything's possible in this universe, why would anyone believe anything ever?
Well, you investigate further. There's whole episodes of Star Trek based on murder investigations. But whatever.
We see, that footage from Zeph's suit that shows him killing himself, and then Giorgio quickly figures out it was Fuzz, the tiny alien in the Vulcan robot suit.
That's right.
Who, set his Vulcan on autopilot and then took over Zeph's suit and used it to attack the team.
Yeah, this part was kind of cool. We had the dead body of Zeph fighting along with the Vulcan body while he escapes, and then they have this chase on like a hovercraft. The effects look
tunnel.
The effects look fine, I suppose.
Yeah, it was okay.
I thought, Christian, maybe you can explain this. If he's so small, why didn't he just flee the Vulcan's body? I guess they have tricorders they could use to pick him up.
I don't know. I have no good explanation. Well, was he trying to get away, or was he trying to
kill everybody? I think he was trying to get away because he contacted his allies, right?
Fuzz reveals that San is actually alive. He apparently used the Dread Pirate Roberts method of immunity.
That's right. That was funny. And Fuzz also knows Giorgio's backstory about killing her own family. San told her, and he gives a whole speech about it.
San's plan is that he's going to detonate the godsend, and then the Terrans will invade the Prime Universe.
That's right. That's right.
And so they've gathered who remains of the Section 31 team, which is Alok, Giorgio, Garrett, and what's his name? Quasi, who we've barely talked about at this point.
Is that the Changeling guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, do you notice they didn't spend a lot of time warning their buddy who got killed. Did you notice that? There's like one bit of dialogue about her.
Oh? No.
Yeah. Yeah. The Delton who got vaporized.
Yeah.
They were.
Oh yeah. Wow.
They were like, why should we trust Giorgio? She got her killed. I don't even remember the Delton's name.
No.
And now more of us are going to get killed. So just an observation again. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've gathered them. They're like, well, now we know what the plan is. How do we stop him? And it turns out that Alok is the one who took the missing coil from the wrecked ship, so that they were all stuck on the ground during their mole hunt.
Yes, I actually kind of like that.
I was like, that's pretty clever. We're having a mole hunt, so we can't let any of us get away. We need to actually be grounded here to figure it out. So he steals that. But so they put that back in. They're able to get this garbage scow that they found to, actually fly.
Why didn't they call Starfleet?
Because this is a Section 31. I don't know.
But they have Rachel Garrett with them, a Starfleet liaison.
This is why it's a problem that they didn't. Section 31 never has Star Trek liaisons.
Not until now. It just straight up doesn't make sense, especially with the quadrant at risk.
Except we're outside of Federation territory right now, is what we're told.
Okay, they don't have some spy ship. Come on. That actually has actual guns on it.
What I'm saying is that they're outside of Starfleet's jurisdiction.
Yeah, okay. But still, there had to be a million better ways to do this than take an unarmed garbage scow up against.
Yeah, fair enough.
I did like that their best weapon is the tractor beam.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was cool. That reminded me of the Brandon Sanderson book, Skyward, where they have the tractor beam as their weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That I read because Christian recommended it, by the way.
Did you ever read the other books in that series?
Not yet.
You should. They're very good.
Right.
I would much rather spend time reading that than watching this again.
Ew.
But yeah, so the team use the tractor beam to drag San's ship into a plasma storm. Alok and Giorgio beam over. Giorgio and San fight while Fuzz and Alok fight. Fuzz sets the Vulcan on autopilot, and then he tries to go and kill Garrett and Quasi back into the garbage scow.
Did you like the part where Fuzz says he's a microbe supremacist?
I did not catch that.
You don't remember that? He has this whole thing where he's like, you big people, you all think you're so big. Well, the smalls are going to rule the world after we blow everything up. Well, no, he says something like, who can survive explosions? Microbes.
Very small things, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that was kind of funny.
All right, but yeah, so Garrett MacGyver's a bomb out of a toy that is not allowed in the Federation and has some sort of, explosive property.
That's right.
And then they eject it from the cargo bay, and Fuzz is potentially killed.
Well, the Vulcan suit definitely dies. There's a part where it reminded me of the 2-button meme. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the part where she has 2 buttons? I don't remember what the 2 buttons do, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. And then Alok destroys the Vulcan suit. San is trying to kill Giorgio with a sword, but then she ends up killing him, and she's sad about it for some reason.
I'm glad you noticed this too.
Like, really?
What's she so sad about? She represents a lost love.
Yeah, which I didn't like. Michelle Yeoh, great actress, great action star. And I've seen her do wonderful things with acting. There is only so much she can do with this material.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, that whole thing, I didn't buy it at all that she was supposed to be sad about killing San.
Yeah, she's a monster. She's the blood of millions of people on her hands, and she can't kill one more. Maybe he represents her lost love. It's like the sled from Citizen Kane, spoiler alert.
But yeah, so Giorgio takes the godsend, which has been activated. She's going to let it activate in Terran space and collapse this passageway.
Giorgio, what about them? Her ship is going to blow up.
Yeah. Giorgio and Alok are willing to die to let that happen. But Quasi beams them out just in time, except wasn't that supposed to destroy the entire quadrant?
Okay, so that's besides the point. So first of all, he's trying to beam them out before it goes off, and he says, "I can't beam them out. There's some kind of interference," which I love. It's nice to know that some things don't change. In Star Trek, there's always some kind of interference that prevents the transporter from working. But then when the bomb goes off, I legitimately thought it was a dream sequence or something when they were alive again. Because he literally just said the transporter isn't working. So how did they get out?
But it says Quasi was able to get them out somehow.
Somehow, yes. But as for the question about doesn't destroy the whole quadrant, my guess is they did the Star Trek thing where it's in the anomaly and then it collapsed the anomaly because it went off. How lucky.
Yeah, right. So it destroyed a quadrant in the mirror universe?
No big loss on that.
Anyway, so 3 weeks later, back on the club satellite, Alok and Giorgio are flirting, except it's not Alok, it's actually Quasi.
Oops.
But she realizes it's Quasi because he still can't look her straight in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
We see another Vulcan. This time
it's the same Vulcan.
It's no. Well,
yes.
The
suit
Vulcan.
Is the same.
Yes.
So, like, what's up with that? Did the suit have a twin brother or something?
No, what they say is that Section 31 bought 3 of those suits.
Okay.
And inside this one is Wisp, Fuzz's wife.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember this. So he must have survived the explosion because she's like, I'm after him.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say.
And then Control contacts them with another job. We see a hologram, and Control is played by Jamie Lee Curtis.
So the internet had a theory that Michelle Yeoh called her up and was like, hey, want to milk some money out of Paramount Plus?
Yeah, that's probably it, yeah. I mean, they worked together and Everything Everywhere All at Once, which got Jamie Lee Curtis an Oscar, which she did not deserve.
You don't think so? I thought she did a pretty good job.
Not Oscar-worthy in that movie. She's barely in that movie.
Yeah, the Oscars don't know what they're talking about.
And it ends with a Yo Mama joke. Do you remember this?
I have something about Jamie Lee Curtis. No, I don't remember the Your Mama joke.
Well, it's like, oh wait, did they say it was this planet or that planet? No, they said it was planet Your Mama.
Right.
Oh my god.
There's also a joke where I think Giorgio says, I'll slaughter you all. That's so funny. Remember, this movie opened with someone killing their family, including a child. Anyway, that was Section 31. That might be our shortest plot recap we've ever had. Man. Not that I don't appreciate it.
It was also one of the shorter movies we've ever covered.
Spy fact versus spy fiction.
That's right. All right, so now we have our spy fact versus fiction, as we always do here on the Spy-Fi Guys. Christian, how much? I have very little. Should I go first?
Sure.
Okay, so like we mentioned, the Delta originally appeared in Star Trek The Motion Picture, Rachel Garrett's Academy Enterprise C, but when they first go to the bar, there's a guy where his face is half black and half white.
Yes.
This is a reference to Star Trek Original Series episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield.
Yep.
And then finally, there's a part where Rachel Garrett says to somebody who gives her a hard time for being too high-strung, she says, if I wanted someone to like me, I'd get a dog. Do you remember that quote? So I'm going to assume that's a homage and not a stealing from a Harry S. Truman, who has a famous quote where he says, you want a friend in Washington? Get a dog. That is what I got for Spy Fact versus Fiction.
All right. So what I've got is just sort of a little brief history of Section 31. We first meet them in, what episode was that?
DS9 episode.
We first meet them in a DS9 episode called Inquisition, where we meet Section 31 operative Luther Sloan, who tries to recruit Julian Bashir. We see him a bunch through that last season of DS9, including what is probably arguably for me the best Section 31 episode is called Inter Arma Enim Silent Legis, In Time of War the Law Falls Silent. It's very much a spy story. I would love to cover that at some point on this show.
All right.
It's in the vein of your spy who came in from the cold kind of thing.
Okay. I don't remember that one. I watched all of DS9 recently.
It's very good.
All right.
They pop up again next in Enterprise, which chronologically we see first in DS9 or in Enterprise. We find out that the name comes from the original Starfleet Charter, where Article 14, Section 31 allows for extraordinary measures to be taken in times of extreme threat.
Which it seems to be all the time, as far as I can tell.
But yeah, so we find out in Enterprise, one of the other characters, Malcolm Reed, actually used to work for Section 31 before he board Enterprise.
Mhm.
Section 31 also appears in Star Trek Into Darkness, where Admiral Marcus is also the head of Section 31.
Oh my god, I forgot that.
And this
I
is where
really disliked Into Darkness, by the way.
it's fine. But I would say that that's one of the first instances where you get our Section 31 is a secret branch of Starfleet as opposed to acting outside of Starfleet.
That's right.
But I accepted that because that was in the Kelvin timeline. It's a separate timeline, so things are different there.
Mhm.
And when we come to Star Trek Discovery, in the first season we see, someone with a black badge. Do I have my black badge here? There it is. I do have my black badge.
All right.
And it's a fun concept, except it's stupid. Why would you actually have a badge for a secret organization?
The rule of cool is because it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it looks cool, but that's about it. And this is where, again, we get into that whole thing of, all right, Section 31 is now a branch of Starfleet intelligence. It's like, that's not what Section 31 is.
Nope.
So, yeah, that's a brief history of Section 31 as an organization from a real-world timeline chronology. And that's what I've got for Spy Fact for Spy Fiction.
Favorite quotes.
All right, so now we move on to our favorite quotes. These characters certainly have a lot to say. So, would you like me to go first?
Sure. I've only got 2, so hopefully you don't take either of my 2.
Okay, so I'm going to begin with quotes I liked, and then quotes I liked because they were so awful.
All right.
So the ones I liked is in the beginning when she betrays Sanj, somebody says, "Not 2, but 1, not anymore." Then she sticks the knife in his face. She says to her, "No one wants to live in your world, Emperor," which I thought was cool. And then at the end, when they're fighting, and Son again, he was barely in the movie, but he has a lot of good quotes, which I think is interesting. He says, "Go tell your family how much you've changed." And then now the ones I liked because they were so awful.
Yeah.
There's a part where Georgiou says, "Starfleet where fun goes to die," which is like the Etrigan problem, like right in the middle.
I kind of like that one. Okay.
Yeah, I thought you might. Later, she says, "For tyrants, there's only one choice, murder," which sucks. And then finally, this may be my least favorite line in all of our Spy-Fi guysdom, Christian, is when Rachel Garrett says, "Chaos is my friend with benefits."
I have that as one of mine.
Oh my god.
Oh god.
That made me want to get up and walk out of the room. Whatever they paid her to deliver that line is not enough. Man. All right, and what's your other one?
Well, my other one was, "Don't get your prime directives in a bunch."
That's also really bad. I would have written that down if I had remembered it. It doesn't even make sense. You can't get your directives in a bunch.
Yep.
Also, why are they talking about the prime directive?
Okay. It was directed at Rachel Garrett as the only actual person from Starfleet.
Ratings.
There we go. All right, so now it is time for our ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 martinis. 10 being Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, and 1 being Avengers 1998, or will it be replaced with this movie?
Oh, interesting.
Let's wait and find out. Christian, you want me to go first again?
Sure, you can go first.
Okay, so like I said, I don't love how the internet's been dunking on this movie for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, we need to get our turn first.
Yeah, exactly. So the characters are super annoying. The plot is very boring. Others have pointed out that in Star Trek these days, there's always a doomsday device, and there's always revenge. Those are the 2 things you always have. Even Michelle Yeoh really can't save it. And as if everything weren't bad enough, this movie broke my TV.
How?
Yep. I was halfway through it. I was watching, I think it was the scene where they were talking about who's the traitor, when the picture went out and the sound kept going and it's dead.
Wow.
It would cost me almost as much to fix it as just to get a new TV.
Oh, man. Ouch.
It's a 100% a true story. So the question now is it worse than Avengers 1998? And I think no.
I don't think so. Okay, yeah. All right.
Because Avengers 1988, what it had going for it was Sean Connery.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with Avengers is that it's boring.
Mm.
And this movie is not boring. There's a lot of things you can say about it. At least it moves along, and at least it's pretty short.
Mm.
So, drumroll please, my final verdict is I will give it a 1.5.
Oof. All right, 1.5. What did we give Avengers?
Leaning more towards 2 than 1.5, but
we gave it a 1. You gave it a 1, I gave it a 2. And yeah, I will rank this above that. I'm looking at other things that we've listed as like sort of lowest scoring. We got Hudson Hawk.
We were too harsh on Hudson Hawk.
Yeah. What else we have here that was quite low? We both gave the Tuxedo a 3.
That seems about right.
It is higher than Hudson Hawk for me. But Hudson Hawk, looking back on it, was fun at least.
Yeah.
So
there's things to like.
I might re-rate that if we ever went back to it, but I'm going to give this a 2.5. It's below the Tuxedo. It's pretty bad. But, I mean, like the saving grace is Michelle Yeoh. She is still fun here. Although, I was a little disappointed by some of the action. Like, it was just kind of there. It wasn't well thought out. Sometimes when I watch these shows, especially like some of the like Star Wars shows where they have a lot of use of the volume, and you can tell they're using a lot of AR screens. This one did use a lot, but I never felt that as much as some of the Star Wars shows. Like, the effects looked good, if nothing else.
True. The effects looked good, the fights looked good.
Yeah.
So it had some stuff going for it.
Yeah. So yeah, 2.5 out of 10 martinis from me.
All right, great. Anything else you want to say? Sign off?
No, I would say if you want spy-flavored Star Trek, go and watch any of the Section 31 episodes of DS9. It is much better there.
Right.
Inter Artem Enum Sinit Legis is, I think, one of my favorite episodes of DS9. So if you want, like, that's a pure spy story with Bashir.
Very nice.
Yeah, so I would like watch that. Or if you want more fun spy themed DS9, go watch Our Man Bashir.
Yeah, which we may also cover at some point.
Yes, we do. All right.
Well, thank you for joining us here on the Spy-Fi Guys. You can find us on social media at Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Blue Sky, and Instagram, and our merch store at redbubble.com. And also you can find us on YouTube as well. Until next time, I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And we are the Spy-Fi Guys, signing off.
Thank you for listening to the Spy-Fi Guys. If you enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The theme song from this podcast is Mistake the Getaway by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Films, books, and television shows reviewed by our podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
This is a personal podcast. Any views, statements, or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the participants. They do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the participants may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual.
You can find our podcast on social media at The Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Instagram.